No swearing then. I think there's lots of people can hear us. Okay. So I'm just going live on Facebook. So let's start talking then properly. So I'm just waiting now. It could be any second now. That looks good. Okay, I think we are live. So welcome everyone. My name is Richard. I've just got this thing on the screen which I'm going to stop sharing. Hello. And we are live on Facebook, and hopefully you can see me too, but I can't see myself. So I'll just start my video.
We had a beautiful picture of you, Richard.
Yeah, hello. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome to everyone. We have, this has gone a bit nuts, this whole thing. So normally these are some chats we do and it's all nice and relaxed. And then today, for some reason, it's gone absolutely through the roof. So there's one of four reasons for that. I've been giving it some thought. It's either the topic, which is a good one. It's Jorge, it's me, or it's Lisa. And I have decided, I've done a bit of research on this. It's actually me, so which is great. So hello, everyone. Yeah. In all seriousness, now I think the Lisa Pagotto fan club is here in full effect. So, and I'm seeing some comments popping up on the screen. Someone just said it's Lisa. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Yeah. So welcome. I just want to do a bit of an introduction. First of all, Jorge and Lisa, say hello.
Hi guys.
Hi everyone. Good afternoon.
Okay, and that's someone else now. Kylie Duncan Tiver says Lisa and the topic. Thank you so much for that. So welcome. This is session 18 of what we're doing. They're called Survive and Revive, and they are some sessions that we started just before the lockdown to talk with various people about various things around the travel and tourism industry. So I've had to upgrade my account today to allow 500 people, up to 500 people to join in. So I'm charging the panelists. So that's $98 from each of you two. That would be great. And I don't know about you, I'm sick of webinars. I'm getting webinar requests from like printing companies and CRM people, that sort of thing. But hopefully we can make this one an interesting one for you. And I thank you for your time for coming to take part today. This is also being recorded live. It's live and being recorded, so you can go and watch it on Facebook. And the idea is it's a chat. There won't be any screens in this one today. So if you want to go and chop vegetables, you're more than welcome. So a little bit about who we are. It's the Travel Industry Hub. We are a co-working meeting and event space in Sydney, and that's founded by myself and Luke Crawford, who runs the Visa Machine. And we took a while to get that up and running, and we were launching during COVID-19, which has been fantastic. And obviously we've had to close that just as soon as we were opening, but we are planning to reopen. And you may not be thinking that you need an office in Sydney. That's actually the whole point. We don't think anyone needs an office anymore, particularly in our industry. So flexible working is the future. And we're going to be doing a session on that soon to show people about that. So I won't speak too much, but we may need to pivot to outsiders and let other people use the place. But the point is that we have, I think, what we need, what you might need. It could be an address in Sydney. It could be a meeting place when you come down, etc., etc. And we also hold events there. We've got a stage with AV speakers, etc., and an oven, so you can self-cater. Now, the point of me telling you that is that we were going to hold events there, as well as rent that out to anyone in the industry to hold their event. We wanted to hold our own things and talk to people in an intimate session. Like, for example, I could get these two up on stage. We talk to up to 100 people about whatever subject, but this has brought everything forward. Now we're all at home. So thank you again for coming. As I said, it's a chat. We've already done things on LinkedIn about why you should be networking right now, about hosting webinars and personal finance. So if you go to our website, which is www.thetravelindustryhub.com, you'll be able to see them. And one thing I ask is that you follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. Just coming up, we've got AAT Kings tomorrow talking about what they're doing. I've got Bruce Piper, Helena Taylor. I've got another one on domestic tourism. So we're also going to sort of mold around what people need. Quark Expeditions are coming on. And every Friday we hold what we call the Travel Industry Pub. and that's just drinks. You can just come along, and they run for about 5 hours each Friday night, and you can drop in whenever you like for a drink. So that's the intro. I've got to move on to our guests, I suppose. It's not just about me today. Lisa Pagotto is first. She runs founded and runs Crooked Compass. So Lisa, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you do and who you are?
Sure. So I know that a lot of you are familiar with our product, but perhaps there's a few people in here who aren't. So we do both small group tours and private tours, really focused it well. We were doing small group tours and private tours, focusing more on your emerging destinations. So places that haven't really been too touched by tourism. Our product is really for those people who are well-traveled. They've been there, done that. They're looking for the what's new and what's next. They're certainly curious-minded. They want to be educated, and they want to do things that you can't easily just, find on Google and sort out when you're there. They're people who are prepared to pay to do something exclusive. And on top of that, obviously with the COVID situation that we're currently in, we've had to pivot our business. So it's quite interesting. I know some of you are aware that we have already launched Crooked Compass Australia. Our media release actually went out today, so you'll see a lot more of that in the press over the coming week or two. But just to give a bit of background as to where the Crooked Compass Australia side of it came from, it wasn't because of COVID. It was actually something that we were already working on. So I know that one of my team is listening in, and we actually started working on Crooked Compass Australia probably about 12 months or so ago, and we were building it for our growing international market. We weren't building it for Australians specifically. And then it was just something we were ticking away in the background, really trying to find out ways of how to do Australia differently. We didn't want to offer what other operators already do. We didn't want to do the stock standard, Darwin, Kakadu, Litchfield type of thing. We really wanted to find the lesser known side of Australia that people perhaps weren't aware of, and so that it still fitted with that brief of what we do with our international product. So we just chipped away very slowly. It wasn't really a priority. The rest of the business was growing too much for us to give it the full attention it needed. But then the bushfires happened at the beginning of this year, and I kind of kicked myself. I really wish that we had the product up and running, because we were getting so much feedback from people who were looking to commit for this year, saying, oh, I can't, I'm going to have to push it to 2021. I've been affected by the bushfires, or my traveling companions have been affected. And it was just this common thing that we had. And so I was a little bit frustrated that perhaps we hadn't given it more time, but then COVID happened, and that gave us the time that we needed to really perfect it, and to start moving through and we've got 4 of our programs out now. We will have something in every single state, but slowly. So the first 4 are out. We will also be doing a private air charter as well. So Australia by air in a private plane to some of the most remote and luxurious properties around our country. So still very much true to the Crooked Compass values about taking people offbeat, remote. All of our product have very strong cultural connections, whether it's with the Indigenous, with the Aboriginals, or with Torres Strait Islanders. It's something that we will have throughout all of our Australian product. Just like with our international, we always have that strong connection to different cultures and tribes as well.
Cool. Jorge, sorry, my mistake. I always do that. My mistake. Jorge Fernandez.
Don't forget, Richard, I know where you live.
No, you don't.
Hi, everybody. Look, quick introduction for those that haven't met me before, and I have recognised quite a few of the names that are logged in. Number one, Richard, thank you very much for the opportunity, I guess, to be here with you guys. And Lisa, thanks for sharing the floor. And that was a really lovely little introduction. And I guess one of the reasons I was very excited about joining this forum. I've spent the last 8 weeks or so really focusing on businesses in travel, really doing the hibernation piece and making sure that a lot of businesses do all the right things and do all the compliance stuff to survive. And I guess I've really moved on, and particularly in the last 3 to 4 weeks, on trying to focus on the recovery. And one of the reasons I was really excited about joining this. Again, just as a quick intro, guys, I've been in the travel game for around 36 years, believe it or not, although that time has gone really quickly. My background is actually a biologist, and I cut over to the travel industry in 1984. For those that know me, that's a 2 bottles of red wine story to see how I cut over. That
happens every Friday night. you can join that and tell us that story.
I'll be non-compos mentis after the first bottle, I expect.
All right.
Over those years, I've literally set up and run around 7 different travel businesses and grown them and been successful in that area, and actually a couple outside the travel space as well. And in fact, my last serious role was actually Chief Operating Officer of a company called Travel Edge, a very successful corporate travel management company, but we had some really successful divisions in executive corporate travel for leisure, and also events and groups, and also prize giving and incentives travel as well. The last 11 years, guys, I set up a company called Applied Sense to provide professional business advisory services to the travel industry, and have been doing that, spending most of my time doing business coaching and performance and best practice in our industry across a number of different sectors, both with agencies and business owners, but also with some of the buying groups as well. And the reason, I guess, starting of why I was excited about this is I'm really been doing a lot of work in preparing agency owners and businesses recently in preparing for this, this surge of business that's going to come our way fairly soon. And green shoots have already started. And it's great listening to Lisa, the fact that coincidentally starting to focus on the domestic market, which is amazing anyway. But I guess one of the most important things is it's coming, and it's coming very, very soon. And it's going to be the first opportunity for us to actually start bringing revenue back in the businesses, and lots of interesting opportunities. And that's what I want to talk about today.
Sure. Just a bit on me for anyone that cares. I know you're all here for I'm seeing the comments. It's all Lisa. But I worked for Galileo for many years, and then I moved into domestic tourism with an inbound tour operator. And when you go to events with for that, you realize that there's almost no connection whatsoever between travel and tourism. So that's why when I've been talking to these two, these separate conversations, I thought we should bring them together and chat in this forum today. So thanks. I also know that there's Amber Cummings from Tourism Australia. I know you're here, so this is something I want to make. I want to raise this issue because I think there's a gap between the two. And there's also a chap called Adam O'Neill who I want to bring on soon. He does digital marketing for the tourism industry, and I want to have a talk with him because I think he can help travel agents and consultants, agencies with their marketing. But I'm going to facilitate. I've got to look around the screen and check messages and comments, that sort of thing. So Jorge, do you want to lead off? Look, I know we probably can't talk about who you work with, but I know there's a number of national chains that everybody knows the names of. You sneak around in the background giving them advice, don't you? So yes.
Yeah, no, I do. Look,
yes.
and I guess I run a lot of performance groups, both in the leisure space and the corporate space as well. So I guess my exposure is that I'm constantly talking to business owners out there. I also do a lot of leadership stuff outside of the travel space as well. So it gives me a unique opportunity to listen to what business is doing out there and what the economy is doing in general. And because I prepare a lot of advisory stuff for some of the larger guys, I try and stay leading edge on all the stuff that's coming out. And one of the things in this area is there's a lot of data coming out of the US at the moment from a lot of really interesting surveys, mainly from the US Travel Association. And it's, to be honest with you, it's common sense, but there's a huge pent up anxiety business building to get out of the house and get out and actually start doing some experience stuff. And there's a lot of really high pent up business for over the next 6 months. A lot of car-based travel is expected to be done, but also lots of other forms of travel as well. I guess the way I wanted to launch into this, and if I've got the floor, Richard, and at least a lot of this will lead on to some of the great stuff Lisa's already been talking about, and obviously Lisa's offering as both a supplier and an expert in this game. But something I want people to really think about as business owners and also consultants, because most of you tend to do that as well, is your clients and people have been stuck at home and they've been overexposed to the web. And this is a really important thing. A lot of data showing that people are really being exposed to lots of very high quality images and videos and a lot of rich content in this dreaming phase. And a lot of us have been, and you've seen a lot of campaigns, and tourism particularly is, don't stop dreaming, even if you're stuck at home. So I guess the first thing I want everyone to realize is that our clients, our existing clients, have been really going through this dreaming experience in a very rich digital format. So I challenge everyone to think about when business starts coming back, what are we doing in our businesses to actually meet those expectations? You know, are our quotes and our itineraries that we used to use going to, you know, cut it in this new age? Because I think that's actually one of the things that's going to come along much more quickly. So the other thing that I have an issue around that, and what I'm trying to really focus people on, is that there's also the fact that people have been so stuck on the web and spent so much digital time, is that is that building the first out-of-home experience going to be, oh, well, that's where I'm going to book that travel. So I've had the experience there in the web. So is the default going to be, I'm going to book that as well? And the reason I say that, and I've challenged and I've had a few really quite strong conversations with agencies, you know, who have been around for a long time and do an amazing job. I don't think our clients have been trained to default and book these short domestic trips with us. And in fact, I know for a fact that a lot of agents out there over the last 3 to 5, 10 years have subtly been saying, look, it's so much easier to book domestic stuff. We don't make any money out of it. It's so much easier to book online with the airlines, et cetera, et cetera. Have we been slowly training them over the years that for the short stuff, which is now what's going to come in, be our opportunity, are we the default place for them to book? And not only for them, but also recommend their friends and family. I'm asking that question because I think that's one of our biggest challenges, and we have to start doing stuff now on that. Okay, and that's a really important thing. And I know I spoke to Lisa about this last week when we were preparing and talking about this topic, is that there's a lot of opportunity, but we need to make sure they come back to us. And therefore, we need to start building those relationships, talking to clients, and, you know, I hate to say this, using a little bit of the pity aspect that most people realize how hard our industry has been hit, and use that to make sure they come and they book that stuff through us, and let them know they're not going to think that way by default. The other couple of points I really wanted to sort of get across today as well is check in with your teammates, you know, and your staff as well about existing specialties. I know the couple of questions that came through about, you know, well, what do I focus on? A lot of people have traveled already in Australia, but the experiences around the wine industry, food, music, arts, bushwalking, nature, cycling, golf, etc. You probably have some really good specialists already amongst your consulting staff who will help to sell those products. Because the fact that you need to have that experience, and therefore you'll have that experience already in the things, but something that we're not been focusing on in the past, because most of us have been specialists in cruising or America or some other international destination. And obviously also we need to start building up our knowledge, obviously, of suppliers like Lisa's Crooked Compass, you know, one of many. The other thing too, which I know Lisa might want to talk a little bit about this as well, is that we have to be also very aware and educate our clients that terms and conditions for the new business that's going to come in is potentially going to be pretty tough. There's going to be a lot of pay up front and a lot of, you know, I guess, non-refundable type of arrangements, because a lot of the small wholesalers and suppliers have been in a difficult situation, no revenue coming in, and they can't afford to be very generous with terms and conditions. But I also have to warn everyone, consider this carefully, because and I don't have to tell anyone about how much rubbish, bad press that the industry's had around cancellation fees very recently. So the perception, even amongst our clients, might be a bit touchy when we start saying, oh, by the way, you know, there's some really good packages we can put together, but it's going to be pay up front, or there's no refundability, etc. So we've just got to be careful. And Lisa mentioned something, I'm not going to steal your thunder, Lisa, but because a lot of people have been stood down and a lot of people aren't working in those businesses, there's going to be a lot of mistakes. So we just have to be double, triple careful and double and triple check things, so we make sure that our clients get amazing experiences domestically. Interestingly, I just read today World Expeditions was announcing that they had a no deposit policy for Australia and New Zealand, obviously trying to build up business quickly and trying to get a bit of demand going. But please keep in mind, in this changing landscape, we've all got to make money, because we haven't been, and everyone's making money. So trust me, there may not be a deposit, but we need to make sure that we collect enough to cover the costs of doing business ourselves. The last two little things I'm going to touch off, and then I'll hand over to Lisa, is please be aware also, guys, just be careful. Payment security at the moment, we've lost our ATAS cover, so therefore credit cards is best practice now. It's the only way that your clients and yourself will be able to actually have recalls of funds in case things go wrong. Okay, and don't forget, please, that lots of organizations will be financially a little bit doing it tough at the moment. So use your supply chains, use your buying groups, use your amazing knowledge to make sure that you're dealing with reputable companies and companies that are basically going to be able to deliver on what the experiences you're going to put them on. particularly after you've started saying, we're now specialists in domestic and local experiences. And the last one, guys, which is hugely important, and this is really important in the corporate sector too, even when people get in their car and they want to start doing short trips, there's going to be a huge appetite with your clients for health mitigation information and actions. So what before used to be a benefit, like, 5-star hotels, personal guide all the way through, luxury coaches. Well, now one of those benefits of what you're going to be selling domestically is they provide sanitation packs. They only use hotels that pre-sterilized rooms. They have a touchless check-in experience with hotels. The guide's been trained already for basically doing contactless check-ins and things like that. All those things will now be preferential selling tools that you need to really quickly learn, because a hotel that does that will be literally get more business, and a tour provider that's already starting to offer those services will be worth gold. And you need to start gathering that information and having a new set of preferred suppliers domestically. That's it from me.
Have you just used up all your interesting points all in one go?
Of course. Get it out there and hand over to Lisa and talk, because there's going to be a good Q&A session. But they're the main things that I really think are going to make a huge difference to be able to nab that business quickly. Because realistically, guys, everyone's saying that we've got probably from July at the earliest to September for intrastate travel, and then maybe towards the end of that intrastate. And then from September onwards, potentially 3 to 4 months of interstate once the state borders start opening up. It's only the last 48 hours that New Zealand may be, which would be very exciting if we can get New Zealand in there as well before the end of the year, but I wouldn't hold my breath. It's a lot more complicated than the politicians tend to make us believe. So, we really need until the end of this year, domestic is the way to go.
You're supposed to be upbeat. And I just imagine that New Zealand's going to be full of Aussies, and that's, nobody...
But Australia will be filled with Kiwis as well, so then it doesn't matter.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and did you know that tourism in New Zealand is actually made up of 80% Aussies?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Great for New Zealand.
Yeah, and Australia, I think New Zealand is still the second highest visitor to Australia. So exactly. In like normal times.
If you have a question for the panelists, I can see a lot of points coming through. But if it's it's an actual question you'd like answered, I will do my best. But could you put a Q at the beginning, right? Because I'm seeing a lot of things saying hi and about the fares, etc. But if it's a question, put a Q at the beginning. I'll try and collate them later on. Lisa, I know we've chatted about this. We had a little pre-chat, didn't we? You've got a lot of points to go through. Do you want to get started, and maybe we'll cut in and interrupt you from time to time?
Yeah, sure. And I'm reading the comments on the side as well. So if anyone has any questions while I'm talking, please type away, and I'll do my best to feed into what I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay. Or you, depending on what the nature
gives me
of it
something to do. You're the expert, so I will. If I see something that I'll come back later on. So I don't want you to lose focus.
Sure. All right. Well, the first thing that I really wanted to talk about, and there's so much hype around domestic, and for our industry, we've been hit so hard. Every single one of us has, and realistically, none of us actually have any revenue coming in at the moment. Yes, there's a few people getting the odd cruise booking or whatever for 2021, but realistically, no one's actually getting that as cleared revenue. It's sitting there as a deposit or whatever it may be. So whilst domestic is obviously the big buzz at the moment, and it is potentially going to be the only revenue that a lot of us have for the short term period, and everyone's getting excited and everyone wants to try and prepare for it and get the right marketing collateral, it's really important to understand what type of domestic client it is that you want to focus on. Because if I think back to when I was a retail agent nearly 18 years or so ago, I started as a domestic consultant, and I was very much in that junior role where it then got phased out, and you pushed people towards the internet because there was no commission. But back then was when you used to use, your Tassie Temptations, and you'd book your car hire and you'd book your little Airbnb pass all around Tasmania, and that was what domestic travel looked like back then. But we need to keep in mind that us people who have been agents and who are agents, we pushed our clients away. We pushed them to the internet to do those sorts of packages, and it's going to be quite difficult to get them back. So whilst it's all great, to talk to clients and say, oh, we're offering domestic, you need to know what kind of domestic it is that you're offering. There's no point going out there saying, we can book your 2-day weekender trip to Melbourne and you can go to the Yarra Valley and do a wine tour type of thing, because people will want to do that themselves. So I guess speaking from a tour operator perspective, it's about understanding who in your network, and I'm talking about preferred suppliers, offers domestic and the type of domestic product that you want to sell. I mean, if you think about what you sell internationally, a lot of people really focus on your high end, your scenics, your APTs, that sort of thing too. Other people prefer to focus more on your small niche boutique operators. Other people prefer to do the big mainstream, you know, your Trafalgars, Insights, that sort of thing too. So it's about identifying what part of domestic is your style and who does it. And a really fantastic resource is to use the Pagotto website, the Council of Australian Tour Operators. There's 38 tour operators who are Pagotto members who do sell domestic, and every single one of our products is completely different. So, you know, I'm getting a lot of questions, especially emailed to me through some of our agents who are saying, oh, this product's great and I really want to show it to my clients, but I just don't know if now is the right time to market it. For some people, they are already marketing. For some people, they're not. And I think as well, on top of that, is we've all been burnt. We've all been in this dark space for the past 2 months of dealing with cancellations and refunds. So some of us can see beyond and see the light at the end of the tunnel, but there's still a lot of us that are really hurting and that are still processing the trauma of what's happened to our clients, to our staff members, and also to our business. And I completely understand that those people who have had trips cancelled that they've saved for a long time, they're probably not the right people to market to. But you probably have other clients who are getting ready, who are in that excited inspiration phase, who are getting ready to want to deposit and now they can't. They're the people who will be itching to go. They're the people who you should be targeting. And I mean, you don't need to do a hard sell. It's as Jorge was saying, you need that digital inspiration, whether it's through social media or a newsletter, to keep people engaged and to keep them inspired. But again, looking at what type of travel you want to sell. I mean, if you're not interested in doing self-drive and booking a rental car through Hertz and, you know, the odd hotel here and there, then don't focus on that. If you want to do, you know, like your AAT Kings and that sort of thing, then focus on that. It depends on what you're passionate about, because passion is what sells. You know, like I look at our product is expensive, but it's bloody amazing. And there's nothing else out there like it. I know that there's people that look at it and go, oh my God, this is incredible, but I can't afford that. They're not our type of clients. Our clients are people who, they're prepared to pay for something different. They're prepared, they've traveled with us before, they love our style, they want to do something different. It's not everybody, and I totally get that, and that's why we're niche and why we've got, you know, a small pool of people who will do our products. But, you know, we launched our Queensland product on Thursday night at about 5:30, and we had our first booking by 9 a.m. the next day. So it's about understanding your clients, understanding yourself as a consultant and your business, and what type of domestic you want to sell. If you don't want to sell 2-day weekends, then don't try and bring that sort of business to you. If you want to sell high-end True North cruises through the Kimberley and you've got a cruise database, you know, look at those sorts of things. Think outside stock standard domestic, which people will do themselves, like jumping in a car and heading to the Hunter Valley or whatever it might be. There's so many more options. It's just understanding the resources and the tools of where you can find that information. And as I said, the Pagotto website is a great one for those people who want to sell touring product. So further to that, just to touch on what Jorge was saying too about potential issues that are going to come up. So as we all know, we've all had to go through it. We've all had to stand down staff or cut costs or, you know, basically shrink our business to be able to ride through the lack of cash flow that's coming at the moment. That's the simple way of putting it. So we know that there's about to be a boom, and whilst not all of it will come through travel agents, there will be a domestic boom, including those people who do just go fly into Adelaide, book a rental car and then drive up to the Flinders Ranges or whatever it might be. But the other thing is that supply and demand. So some of these small operators have wound down so much that it's just back to being the founder or the owner. And you can imagine, so let's say that after Friday's cabinet meeting, not that it's going to happen on Friday, but just hypothetically, let's say ScoMo says to us, yep, interstate borders are now open between all of the East Coast states. You can imagine that weekend is going to be insane with people trying to book flights, hire cars, hotels, whatever it might be. And hotels will book out very quickly. There's not going to be availability. They don't have the staff to manage it. Things are going to get double booked. There's going to be new staff coming back in who aren't trained, who are trying to deal with this influx. So it's so important that you know who you're working with. You know that you can rely on their processes and procedures as well. Because, you know, as you guys know, travel agents have had such a rough run in the media recently. And to really try and bring back that value, you need to know that you're working with the best. I know that it's desperate times and you kind of want any money you can get, but you need to look at the flow on effect from that. If you're going to book cheap, short, little getaways with, you know, whoever you can quickly find online, you just need to also be aware of what could happen, the flow on effect, and customers coming back not being satisfied with the service you're offering. The other thing to be mindful of, and it's a really touchy one, I guess it's kind of around terms and conditions, but not really, but just thinking back to when the industry changed and we all started pushing people away for domestic, we pushed them towards the internet. And that was sort of at the same time when consultation fees and planning fees and that sort of thing started to come into the retail space. You need to be mindful if you're going to, I mean, a lot of consultants already charge these sorts of fees, and it's just the way that their business is run, which is fantastic. But if it's something new that you're looking to introduce, it's important to really be able to demonstrate that value, your expertise, and again, to demonstrate why that person has come to you over going online. What can you deliver? What can you offer? That peace of mind, that reassurance, and, you know, like the World Expeditions, no deposits. We'll see how long that lasts. But yeah, everybody needs cash flow, and there will be deals flying left, right, and centre, but those terms and conditions are going to be so paramount. And if you don't understand them and your client doesn't understand them, just don't book it. You know, there's been so much drag through the media around terms and conditions. It shouldn't be difficult, but it's just about having the right resources to educate your clients. Let me just have a quick look at my little list here.
I've got a couple of questions while you
Yeah,
read away.
Yeah.
Now, I'm homeschooling 2 children every day, and my wife is earning the money in the other room. I just, you know, I put it out there. I've not been earning money for a while, so I just do what I'm told. So I haven't had time to look at to read everything I want to and listen to everything I want to. Should and I haven't seen the after podcast that I know webinars that they've been doing. Are we getting into territory now where what some of the things you've been saying, Lisa, should they be covering this kind of thing officially?
The agents? Or?
After the advice on conducting business and messaging.
After have a certain role. I mean, I don't think that's their job to do that sort of thing. I think, you know, you look at the consortia that your agency is linked to, and there's a lot of conversations going on. I know with some of the head office conversations I've had, there's a lot of strategy happening about how to target people, who to target, the right messaging, how to get the right clients. I don't think that's a job of AFTA. AFTA is an advocacy board at the end of the day. And, you know, especially with, well, ATAS effectively meaning nothing at the moment, now that there's no ACS and everyone's fees have been waived for the next 12 months, that protective body it's not really there anymore. So AFTA have a very different role. And I think if you sort of went to them with that, they're going to pass it on to somebody else.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think I could probably, you know, sort of mirror that view as well, is that when business starts coming back, unfortunately, there's going to be, and you're hearing already about it, there's a lot of, you know, unfortunately, there's a lot of small operators and rip-off merchants, basically, which will take the advantage of this huge wave of business. So there's going to be a lot of dodgy sites coming up and a lot of stuff that's going to happen. So to me, that's actually an opportunity for the agency network to show their value, as Lisa mentioned, because the fact is, if you're doing the right thing and you're actually using, you know, preferred products, both, you know, supported and vetted by your buying groups and supply, all those kind of things, and companies that you know are well, you know, and Pagotto is a good example of that, but also there's lots of domestic preferred suppliers in amongst the buying groups, is by using those, yeah, you've got a certain level of cover, and that's a value that you add, because, you know, if your clients or their referrals go out into the internet world, there's going to be a lot of rip-offs, and it will be very, very quick as soon as they do start opening borders and you start getting packages being thrown out there that people will be turning up at hotels and they're full and they're booked and someone's taken your money and then the website's not there anymore. We see enough of that during normal business, but I think we're going to get a lot more of that as well. I'm just going to tackle a couple of quick questions. Someone asked me, and I just saw about the months regarding intrastate and interstate. Guys, I'll make a caveat on this, is that anyone that gives you any forecasting is making it up as they go along, and the world is very weird at the moment. So I guess most people can say what they like. But I guess because I talk to a lot of people, both nationally, internationally, and actually I've got in one of my non-travel things, I've got one of the a fairly major person in media in Qantas. Look, all the money is on at the moment that at the likelihood is for any volume from July to September is when we will probably be pretty open for intrastate travel. In other words, potentially the borders in Australia, not all the states, because keep in mind it's not a federal decision, it's a state by state decision, is that likelihood is you know, being conservative, pan up to September for only travel within states. Keeping in mind, guys, there's lots of opportunities. A lot of you guys have got clients outside of Australia, you know, your own city. So, you know, you might be a Sydney agent or a Melbourne agent, and you've got clients in Brisbane or in Adelaide, etc. So this doesn't stop you booking stuff, you know, in their own state. And that's, I guess, the first window of 3 to 4 months. Then from September through to the end of the year, then I expect, and most people in the know say that that's likely to have the borders opened up, and then flights will start. But keeping in mind, guys, capacity will be limited. Lisa mentioned this as well. The moment this wave starts, it'll be very hard to get hotel rooms. It'll be very hard to get on flights. And someone mentioned here about, you know, Alan Joyce saying a $19 fare to Melbourne. Yeah, I'm sure they'll sell one seat on those flights to Melbourne, and there'll be 4 flights scheduled a day to start with in the first week. So good luck getting that $19 fare. But God, it's a good advertising gimmick, you know. And that's what let's be honest, we shouldn't be naive about that. That's called a lead-in price, and it's never available. I think there was one more question as well here about, do I really think that international travel won't be available until next year? Yeah, I do. I'm actually fairly convinced of that. And I've had some quite interesting debates about this whole health passport as well. It's an incredibly complex issue. Guys, from what I'm reading, you know, and this, I'm putting my biologist hat on now, they haven't even actually worked out whether when you've been infected with this virus, whether you actually are immune from it or not. They don't know. So, you know, a health passport's very early. I'm very excited about them thinking about it, but we're not even actually medically there yet as well. So I think that's, you know, something that's still down the track. So look, all the money is, the fact is that, you know, if we're getting some capacity on international travel by January, New Zealand may be different. I'm hoping, and everyone's crossing their fingers, that New Zealand may open up as a market, and maybe the Pacific Islands as well earlier. But, you know, again, most people are planning for January next year at the earliest. I have one more question I'll tackle, and then I'll hand back over. Jorge, you mentioned payment security and the credit card payments as best practice. Do you mean credit cards to supplier directly? Yeah, unfortunately, it's basically past the monkey on this one. You know, I suggest that clients pay you by credit card and you pay suppliers by credit card. And there's a lot of conversations in the industry, even at buyer level, is that accepting credit cards from travel agents, in other words, your business card, your corporate card, and I know that there are restrictions around that, and that's a whole debate on its own, but that's actually going to be best practice, because at least worst case scenario is that client can recall funds from the credit card company on you, and then you can do it back on the supplier as well. And a lot of the buying groups are starting to say that that's going to be a minimum requirement for preferred supplier status moving into the future as well.
I've got them. Have we covered our main points? Because I know I wanted to leave quite a bit of time for questions, and I've got a few more. But
just got 2 more points left on my list. One of them was just about something that's really simple, and that is GST. So one of the challenges that will come up is Australia is so expensive compared to what I was planning to do in Asia or Africa or South America, that sort of thing. And this again comes down to being able to demonstrate value. So the fact that we have GST here and it's not applicable to international travel automatically adds another 10% on top of domestic touring product. And that's something that's quite important if you get asked that question, to be able to explain that to consumers as well. Australia is expensive. We all know that. It's expensive to live here, so it's certainly expensive to travel here. And again, it just comes down to what type of experience your client is after and being able to demonstrate that dollar value. And then just on that price point, the other thing that I wanted to mention, which Jorge touched on in his first part that he went through, is health and safety. So that's going to be a huge thing. You know, every time we hear an update from our premiers or ScoMo, there's always, you know, we're going to ease this, but social distancing is still going to be in place. We still have to follow this. You still have to wash your hands. All that sort of stuff is still going to be here for a long, long time, through to the end of this year, possibly into the beginning of next year. And that affects how touring product operates as well, not only from planes to, you know, what are they going to do? Is the middle seat going to be empty? But through to things like rental cars, how are the cars going to be sanitized between visitors, through to tour operators where, say, for example, like using my business as an example, where we normally have a maximum group size of 12. So normally we would use like a 16 or 18 seater vehicle, depending on the nature of the destination, but we won't be able to do that with social distancing restrictions. It might mean we have to use a convoy of 4-wheel drives to be able to allow that space between passengers. It might mean you have to use a larger vehicle depending on group size. And all those things also come into cost, and also potentially changing the way that an experience perhaps is perceived or delivered. So I think it's also really important for you guys, again, coming back to being able to demonstrate value, is to be able to, when you're talking to your clients, speak to the operators who you're looking at working with and get these questions answered, so that you can say to your clients, oh, look, I know that you were looking at XYZ on the internet, but I've spoken to ABC, and is the company that you've spoken to, do they have, you know, hand sanitizer for every guest? Do they have these procedures in place for, you know, dining in restaurants, for social distancing on vehicles, all that sort of stuff? That is another way for you guys to demonstrate value, expertise, and to show your clients that you have their best interests, health and safety at heart. The domestic traveller is going to be different to what a typical domestic traveller has been before. The self-drive market, the people who are happy to jump in a car and go and do a weekend trip, totally fine. They'll do their own thing. But for those people who want to do a tour or a cruise, or, you know, some sort of crafted experience, there's going to be nervousness around, you know, there's a lot of talk about community spread and community transmission and how to keep that at a low and to stay ahead of the curve and all those cliche things that we've heard. But we, as tour operators, we have responsibilities around that too. And that is a huge thing to, you know, deliver peace of mind, and not only peace of mind, but to be able to offer that on the ground and to execute that too. So I would certainly encourage agents to keep that in mind and to use that as a selling point to really demonstrate the value of you guys and the service that you deliver.
Yeah, no, really well made points, Lisa. And everyone I know across most parts of the industry, whether it's airline, car, hotel, you know, the corporate sector particularly, that whole mitigation of health is a huge one. And it's a great thing to start talking to your clients about as well. You know, the fact is that you're starting to find suppliers and experiences that actually are managing that is going to put you right ahead of the curve, and also answer one of the questions I saw scroll past before about, you know, how do we start getting the trust back of the market, you know, after all of the bad press. Well, that's one of them, because, you know, it's a human story that you're telling. Is the fact is, you know, my interest isn't just in getting business back and obviously bringing my staff back and starting to work in the field that I love, which is, you know, sending people away on holidays. It's also now I've actually added an extra layer on that. I need to look after your health as well. Isn't that a wonderful message to send out there, and a really good way to start talking to your clients about that?
Yeah, I completely agree.
This is great. I've got panelists that read their own questions and answer them. I don't know why I'm here. I did promise that Todd McGeary, who asked, I think you've just answered one of his questions, but earlier on, he asked via email, he said, most of our international clients have already traveled Australia, and it's a bit more of a hard sell to have them replicate something that they've already done. Given this, do you think it's good marketing strategy to maybe promote a new and enhanced Australia to our packs, featuring gourmet food, interesting cultural, out of the ordinary and artistic experiences more so? Maybe to emulate, say, what Europe, the Middle East or Asia has to offer. This is what most of my passengers think, and they are now missing out on.
Yeah, I completely see where you're coming from, Todd, and I totally agree with that being the approach. We are, well, for any agents who are specifically asked to be updated on what we're doing, I'm sending them through selling points, how the product differs to other things in the market, to basically give you guys the information to have at your fingertips to be able to inspire and wow your clients. On top of that, it is so important about your messaging. Like, it's so easy for Australians to say, oh, but I've done Australia, I've been to Queensland, but they haven't been everywhere. And that is where, you know, you guys need to find those things that they haven't done to be able to say, well, I know that you think you've done Western Australia, but did you know that you could go here and do X, Y, Z? Have you thought about this? And just constantly keep feeding them information. You don't need to sell, just push, inspire, use powerful imagery, emotive language, that sort of thing. I mean, we're happy to provide social content, tiles, imagery. You can take copy from our website for anyone that wants to push our stuff. And I'm certainly happy to talk one-on-one with any agents about, you know, specific approaches for their specific type of clientele. If our media release that went out today, it's exactly what you're saying, Todd. The heading of it is Luxury Redefined with the launch of Crooked Compass Australia. Our experiences are high end. It's not necessarily about staying in the best property whilst the accommodation is still that 4.5 star boutique standard. It's the experiences. And I think that is really what you guys need to leverage off, is finding the brands that fit with you, fit with what your values are around the type of travel that you sell, and really pulling them apart and use these operators, ask them for help. Everybody wants domestic business. We can't get domestic business if you guys aren't selling. So, lean on your preferred suppliers and get them to help you with the content, with the wording, all that sort of stuff.
No, fabulous. And I saw someone already answered one of Todd McKirry's questions, which was, I think, I challenge anyone who believes they've seen all of Australia. Ha ha ha. Yeah, look, it's actually true, and I guess Todd actually even sort of half answered his own question about, is it a new, I think what was the word he used, a new type of Australia, or a new Mark II Australia. The Indigenous stuff's really interesting because, look, I worked as a tour guide in Australia for many years in the 80s up in the Territory, and then I got to know a lot of, Indigenous elders, and there was so little available until really the last 3 to 5 years. It's only started really to start coming up. So there's a whole new chapter around that and Indigenous food, and there's no way anyone is actually still alive and kicking who's actually seen all of Australia and all of the new stuff that's coming out, whether it be experiential adventure stuff or, culinary, cooking, wine industry. It's enormous. And keep in mind too, is that the other part of that when we've got to sort of match in on is the event side has also been totally closed down. So once events start rolling back up again, but keep in mind they take a while to get going. That we can then start packaging stuff ourselves. So even some of the stuff that you may think is tiddlywinks and little, long weekends. I'll tell you a live story from last year. An agent, which is in a regional area, which was doing, put together coach trips down to Sydney for the, what do they call it? The Light Festival, the Vivid, thanks. And look, he thought it was just, he's going to get a few mates and stuff in a car and brought down. Within 2 weeks, he actually put together a package with accommodation, one of the little mini cruises, booked a restaurant, got a local guide in Sydney, and actually did coach transfers from the border of Queensland, New South Wales. He filled 2 48-seater coaches and made about 25% margin on that. He made a lot of money and everyone was really happy because it was a whole end-to-end experience. And I hear lots of those kind of stories, and that's stuff that's been happening outside of that space. Now that you'll have to basically have a lot of health mitigation sort of bits added on. And another little casual story too, because someone else said, how do we start pivoting to domestic? I work with a specialist supplier or wholesaler who only does one destination, exotic internationally in the Middle East. And they're now struggling because obviously they look like having no business at all until sometime next year. And, they're starting to put together find out chefs in Australia and try and do a cooking experience and a hotel experience with a stay based on their destination to start people getting really excited. And they're charging good money for it. And she's got a huge wait list of people wanting to do this cooking, food and cultural experience in Australia, dreaming and preparing for a trip next year for her, and she's actually potentially going to build some revenue around that as well. So that's potentially there was a question here I think from Stephen about I mainly do international, how do I start pivoting or changing the word pivot? I'm over as well, sorry.
Yeah, we're all sick of that.
A bit like zoom and pivot are two words.
Hopefully they'll both be gone soon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I guess one of the first things is talk to your clients. And I don't feel guilty. Look, I've been in business for a long time, and using the pity aspect is a lot of people are feeling sorry for the travel industry, and use that and say, listen, I know you probably wouldn't come to me for domestic, but do you realize I'm actually getting a lot of really good domestic companies together, checking out the kind of health mitigations they're doing, companies like Crooked Compass, etc. I can really give you some amazing experiences in Australia as well while we're waiting to be able to go overseas, because I know that there's a big pent up amount of business sitting there as well. And I know that with Todd's question as well as, how do we convince people to book a tour locally, and when the poor things are thinking about the international. Let's get into acceptance mode. There aren't going to be much international trips until next year. So your clients don't have a choice. They're not going to be able to go and book it through somebody else. And one other little question I'll just quickly answer to, when do we expect New Zealand to be opened up? Look, again, please be careful with people forecasting. My guess, if I took, my guesstimate hat on, I don't think it's going to happen until September. I know they're saying, oh, it could happen any Winston Peters, I think, did a thing last night saying, oh, it could happen a lot earlier. That's early. Because keep in mind, it's not just us opening borders. We've got to then have guarantees of, who's New Zealand going to open their borders to, and we're going to be exposed to when Australian travellers go to New Zealand, and vice versa. When the Kiwis come over here, which are less infected than us, if we suddenly open our borders to another country? So those agreements aren't done overnight. So it's a little bit more complicated than, unfortunately, some politicians believe.
Suzanne Holden says that she hates the word unprecedented.
Yeah.
And Mandy
Third word.
And Mandy Forrester Jones, I believe, says the use of the word unprecedented is unprecedented. So thank you for those important points. I've got one I've got been texted through that someone asked on Facebook.
Is that allowed?
Kind of. From Adam O'Neill, it says, how do you see sustainable tourism evolving when people start traveling again? I'll go to you first, Jorge.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one. I've had a few business discussions about how quickly global warming and carbon footprints and everything else took a second seat to COVID. And look, and that's natural. That's human. We're human beings are hardwired to worry about the tiger slinking over the hill towards us, and not sort of the herd of elephants that are 3 kilometers away, I think was one explanation that I had. I think it's going to be important. I think it's actually going to be even more important. Whilst all this other stuff's been happening, we've had another huge bleaching event in the Barrier Reef. So things are still moving in that area. I think a lot of people are really appreciating the lack of pollution in our cities as well. And some of the images I saw from Delhi, finally, after I think they hadn't seen it for over a dozen years, of actually seeing the Himalayas in the background of Delhi. Having been to Delhi quite a few times, I've never seen it in my lifetime. So I think that sustainability is going to be a huge one, and I think our industry, has really owes it to both the industry and also the planet, because we live off the planet, and sending people around the place is to actually promote that sustainability. And being in the corporate sector, I can tell you right now that within the next year or so, there'll be a lot of choices made to pay more money to make sure sustainability is there. And I've been reading a couple of interesting articles of people challenging the airline industry, saying that, when I go to book an airline ticket, I should be able to see what are the routes that I can do, and actually what's the carbon footprint of those routes. And if I'm going to check into a hotel, I want a choice between knowing that a suite is going to cost more carbon, actually have a bigger carbon footprint than a smaller room. And all those kind of elements, I think, will come in. And I think most of our industry can start leading with that, because if you can manage the health mitigation now and include some sustainability good points, I think you'll be ahead of the curve and actually differentiate yourself from your competition.
One more from Georgina. She says, do you think not even the Pacific Islands until next year?
Oh, more forecasting. Don't you hate this?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I just read this morning.
We will be coming back to check on these answers with the date that you gave them.
Well, the interesting thing is the Parliament in New Zealand just today actually passed a higher restriction. They basically changed some of the internal laws so they can actually change visa requirements at a moment's notice for the Pacific Islands, because they're worried about Pacific Islands being a leakage point for infections, because obviously they don't have as many border controls, and there's a lot more traffic by ship, and therefore they're actually tightening up on that between New Zealand and the Pacific Islands, which have got a very, very close connection historically. So I would like to think that the Pacific Islands might be second after New Zealand, but again, it's complicated. If you had told me, even 2 days ago, I thought Victoria may be actually even closer to opening its borders than New South Wales were. Keep in mind, New South Wales and Victoria haven't got that many sealed borders, but have a look at Victoria's already got another cluster that's just started up in the abattoirs. It just shows you how quickly that can change. That's why I'm not a big believer in forecasting. You just play it by ear as it goes along and prepare as much as you can.
Sure. Anna says, if we're leaning towards developing end-to-end itineraries for clients, all inclusive, do we require any extra insurance as the operator? I don't want to turn into a tour operator as such. She's obviously got a problem with tour operators, Lisa. But I'm wondering if it's walking a fine line towards being a travel agent and a tour operator.
Yeah, it is. You cross over. So the minute that you start putting together, hiring a chauffeur driver, a guide, sightseeing and accommodation, and you start effectively being a tour operator, you need tour operator insurance. It's a completely different mold to being a retail travel agent. It's a completely different price perspective as well, let me tell you, Anna. But yeah, you do. And this is one of the conversations that's been going on for so long. I mean, with the supplier collapses last year and so many agents wanting to work directly with DMCs as well, whether you're piecing it together yourself or going to a DMC, it still converts you from a travel agent to a tour operator. And unless you have tour operator insurance, it leaves you open to a lot of exposure. So, I mean, our gates are the people to speak to if you want to go down that path. If you would prefer to work with DMCs and piece it all together yourself, you definitely need tour operator insurance. Otherwise, find an operator that can do it for you and know that they have the insurance to protect you and your clients. Sorry,
no, carry on. I was going to say something. You finish first.
I was just going to go back to another question that's gone off screen now about cruising that was mentioned earlier. When I refer to cruising, I'm not talking about the big international 3,000 passenger ships that perhaps are coming from Asia or through the Pacific. I was referring more to smaller vessels like your True North, private yacht charters, that sort of thing, which have only been in Australian waters. They haven't been abroad to be able to bring anything in. So we've got 2 cruise charters in our product range, both that yacht that we use, it's only ever in East Arnhem Land and the Torres Strait Islands. So that's the sort of cruising product. There'll be other things that start to come up, especially in the Kimberley being such a big cruising area, that may be possible where perhaps, if you look at companies who would be relocating ships like Penant or Lindblad or something, those products may not be available if those ships have to come from other parts of the world. Whereas companies who have vessels here on shore, but on the water, they could be the cruise product that is first available. I mean, we've got our yacht charters locked in for the end of this year in December and all the way through to 2022, and we comply with everything that we need to be able to operate those.
If I may, just before you come in, Jorge, we are coming towards the end of what's been an hour of non-stop action. So, and we've held on to nearly all the participants. So people aren't dropping off. So let's just, we will carry on with questions. If you're okay with it, just past this, but let's just allow people to go. Is there a possibility we can do part 2 of this if needs be later on?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, more than
okay. And then most importantly, how can people contact you personally? Lisa first.
You can contact me either just by simply ringing the office. We've got live chat on our website in office hours, but obviously I'm logged off now because I'm on here. Otherwise, yeah, you can contact me through any of our social platforms, or I'll just type my email address into the question thing on the slide, and feel free to.
Yes, we'll put that on Facebook for anyone who's watching on that later on. I'll try and remember to do that. Jorge.
Yep. Look, 2 things. Number one, Applied Sense is the company. I saw someone saying, "What's the name of Jorge's company?" Applied Sense is the name of the company. If you just look up Applied Sense or Jorge Fernandez in LinkedIn, you'll find me. It's not that difficult, fortunately.
There can't be many of you around.
Oh, there are actually. It's like John Smith in Spanish. So don't you believe it? I will put my my contact details in the little chat box as well. The interesting thing too, I did see someone, and I just wanted to finish up on one little thing too about the as far as the borders opening. Do you think there'll be quarantine requirements, guys? That's a really bit of a no-brainer, that one. I don't think there'll be much travel at all until those quarantine requirements are finished, because that's when they'll open the borders, because that's the restriction being put in place. So when they open the borders, they won't be asking people to stay for 2 weeks in lockdown. Otherwise, people won't travel, and therefore the border technically is still closed. So that'll be an easy one.
Okay.
And I did just really quickly, I saw that Damien Serini asked a question earlier on. I've just typed a response, but Damien, speak to Brett at Cato. Cato isn't just about those, the members that I mentioned. There are other tiers as well. There's affiliate members, and that might be worth having a chat to him about too.
Right, I've got some more questions. Let's let everyone go. We'll answer those people. If you want to go, please do. Thank you for coming. And I hope you find something useful that we're doing, either this one or others. So let's just carry on then with some of these things. I can't quite keep up with it, but I did see one
The
What's
insurance
your
one.
opinion regarding travel insurance, says Norma Sinclair.
I'll put my 2 cents in too, because I want to thank Lisa for mentioning that other insurance piece around doing tour operator things. Because I mean, I do work with a lot of agents that have some good product of just, and giving opportunities to their staff members to accompany tours, as accompaniments and things. And I'm always telling people, please go and check with Gal Gates, because the moment you start doing it as a commercial venture, you do start overstepping the mark between being, basically a broker for travel and actually operating or providing services that you may not be covered for. So always, please default, if you're doing anything outside the normal of actually selling a third-party product, always check, because it's important you're insured and that you're insuring your staff as well, because obviously keep in mind, if your staff are employed by you, that your work cover may not cover them outside the country. So there's a whole bunch of little things that you just need to check out first. But as far as travel insurance is concerned, that's again a big piece. That unfortunately travel insurance won't cover any COVID-19 events, and therefore you have to consider it. The few companies that did cover them cover it outside, and there are, I'm not going to mention names, but there were a number of companies that did actually cover people for pandemics and infections, but some of the major names didn't. Still an important part, because the reality is, statistically speaking, the likelihood is they're going to fall over and break their leg or lose some luggage or hurt themselves in some other way. It's nothing to do with COVID-19. So travel insurance is still a must anyway, to cover for all the other bits and pieces. But again, clear, open conversations. It's a risk that people will take. The same with a lot of people weren't covered by travel insurance during this this last set of cancellations. Lisa, anything to add on that one?
I would just be selling travel insurance the way that you would for international. I get that we are in Australia, and yes, we all have access to Medicare and that side of things. But travel insurance is more than just medical. It's for when things really do go wrong. And I would familiarize yourself with domestic policies and really pull out those key selling points to justify to your clients why they should be taking out travel insurance. It's an extra revenue maker for you. It's a service that you guys can provide. And you'll also find too that it's no different to international, where anyone who sells domestic will very likely say it's mandatory to have travel insurance.
Yeah.
Leanne asks, will there be a recording? Yes, there will. That will be on our Facebook page and probably other sources if people want it. I've covered that one. I don't have any other questions, I don't think, unless you've seen others come in.
No, I think we've covered most of them from what we've been trying to do it as we go along to make sure people get them in. But no, I think we've covered everything.
All right, cool. Well, I'm going to knock this on the head while people are still desperate for more. But so
yeah, keep them keen.
I really want to say thank you for taking the time to come. Both of you, like everyone who's joined in these is giving up their own time, their own goodwill, and it means a lot to me, and I'm sure a lot of the people on the call. So don't forget, you can save the chat from the call. There's a little 3 buttons down next to where you would type, then you can choose save chat if you want to get any of those details. It will put some of the key details on the Facebook page beneath the event itself with anything that's been typed here that's of interest to people. So closing words.
So
Lisa, let you go first. I'll let you go first, Lisa.
I was just going to say, be confident with domestic. Spend this time before the wave comes through to familiarize yourself with who does domestic, what you want to sell, and use that time to get the information from those companies so that you do understand, and you're not sort of stuck flustered with your clients. It has been a long time since a lot of us have sold domestic, but as I said earlier, just really lean on those contacts that you have in terms of BDMs, operators, to really get the information to give you the confidence that you need to demonstrate that value and service to your clients.
I think one of the points that you brought across earlier on, Lisa, was that maybe try not to specialize in every single area. That was one.
Choose what your passion is. You can't be everything to everybody.
And Jorge.
Yeah, look, and that's an interesting point, because I really agreed with Lisa saying that passion is what makes a difference, and it's actually one of the biggest differentiators in being successful at business as well, and it gets you through the hard times as well.
Write that down. Yeah. Okay.
It's worth a mint.
Sure.
But don't forget, it's copyrighted to Lisa, all right?
Okay, sure.
Guys, if I had to summarize, is look, we've gone through a really tough period. I would expect that all of you have done the compliance stuff of checking your cash flows, making sure you can survive until September. word of fatherly advice, make sure that you actually do your budgeting and your cash flow forecast past September, because obviously that's when, unfortunately, the switch will be turned off for JobKeeper, and that's obviously been a really big help for everybody, and I think the government's done an amazing job there. But guys, the nice thing is the green shoots are starting. We've just talked about the fact that we can actually start making some money again. Love Lisa's attitude. You know, you have to be able to add value, and that's why you guys are still around and you've done such an amazing job. You're just now selling more, you know, a bigger, wider range of travel experiences. So whether you're doing the Kimberley, or you're doing, you know, the Territory, or you're doing Tasmania, or you're doing Venice, it's still experiences, and that's what we're in this industry for. So go out there and do a brilliant job, as you've always done.
Suzanne Holden says, just try to Google you. There sure are a lot of Jorge Fernandez in the world.
There are.
Okay. Right. I think that's bye-bye. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Right.
Thanks a million, Richard. Lovely working with you,
Okay.
Lisa and Richard, and
Thanks,
we'll
guys.
see you soon.
All right.
See
Take
you.
care.
Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Bye.
Good luck with
Cheers,
everything.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.